like to acknowledge our participants from DA Patco Siquijor, DENR Siquijor, and TESDA Lazi Technical Institute. Thank you for coming.
Find rest, my soul, in Christ alone. Know His power in quietness and trust. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are King over the flood, and I will be still, know you are God. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are King over the flood. I will be still, know you are God.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisitil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinagang tulakaw,
is Therese Bicoy. I am your second speaker. In continuation with yesterday's seminar, I will be discussing my topic. What happened to the chemicals in the environment after application? Pesticides will become airborne, get into the soil, enter bodies of water, or taken up by plants and animals. It depends on the physical and chemical properties of pesticides as well as the environmental conditions. The most common happening includes absorption. It is the uptake of pesticide molecules into the plant tissues. Through this, it removes the pesticide from the environment and could prevent the pesticide from becoming a contaminant. This is the physical binding of pesticide to soil particles. Next is erosion. It refers to the movement of soil particles from the application site through a heavy rain or excess irrigation. If this happens, the pesticide is also being moved off-site. Movement in runoff water. It occurs when soluble and insoluble pesticides move from the application site across the soil surface, either in the process of dissolve or through runoff waters. And these pesticides will go quickly to lakes, oceans, and other surface of water. Next is leaching to groundwater. This takes place when soluble pesticides move downward through the soil to the groundwater because the highly soluble pesticides will tend to readily leach into the groundwater. Next is degradation. As soon as pesticide is applied, it directly breaks down or degrades into smaller compounds which are usually less toxic. Each pesticide has its own speed of degradation depending on its active ingredient, on its formulation, and the environmental condition. There are 4 degradation processes. First is photolysis or photocomposition. This is the degradation of chemicals in using light, and this occurs on plants, soil, water, or any other surface that sunlight reached. Next is hydrolysis. This is a process of degradation in water. Water degrades pesticides by dividing large molecules into smaller ones. This occurs when source of water is available. Third is microbiological degradation. This is when microorganisms break down pesticide after application. Microorganisms are most active in soils, having high organic matter. As the pesticide moves down below the root zone, microbiological degradation decreases because of less favorable living conditions for the microorganisms. Lastly is volatilization. A liquid chemical on plant or soil surface can be converted into vapor that could escape into the atmosphere. And this pesticide vapor that drifts through the air may be hazardous to plants, animals, and humans. Environmental effects of pesticide. Pesticides can contaminate soil, water, turf, and other vegetation. In addition to killing insects and weeds, pesticides can be toxic to a host of other organisms, includes birds, fish, beneficial insects, and non-target plants. Pesticides are toxic chemicals designed to be deliberately released into the environment. Pesticides easily contaminate the air, ground, and water when they run off from fields, escape from storage tanks, are not discarded properly, and especially when they are sprayed irregularly. Air pollution by pesticide. Pesticides can spread by volatilize and may be blown by winds or nearby areas. Following factors affects the spreading of pesticides in the air. First is weather conditions at the time of application. Second is temperature, and third is relative humidity. Ground spraying produces less spread than aerial spraying. To minimize this air pollution, Farmers can establish a buffer zone around their crop fields. Plants such as evergreen trees to serve as windbreaks and absorb the pesticides. It prevented drift in other areas, and such windbreaks are legally required in the Netherlands. Water pollution by pesticide. There are four major routes through which pesticides reach the water. Contaminate water when they are spraying. Example, rice cultivation. It may be percolate or leach through the soil. It may be carried to the water as runoff. Carried to water by eroding soil. After contaminate the water, it makes a lot of problems. First is application of the herbicide to bodies of water can cause fish kills. Reduce the quality of drinking water, reduce the amount of water available, and altering the physical characteristics of bodies of water. Soil pollution by pesticide. In the use of pesticide decreases the general biodiversity of the soil. Also affect the soil microorganisms and decrease the soil fertility. Effect on growth of the plants, residual effect of the pesticide in the soil can enter the food chain and biomagnification. Pesticide effects on plants. Pesticide application also causes toxicity to plants, which can be seen in the forms of necrosis, chlorosis, stunting, burns, and twisting of leaves. The excessive use of pesticide is one of the major causes of reduction of the diversity of structural vegetation. Because sensitive or stressed plants may be extra vulnerable to phytotoxicity, pesticide application could affect negatively on plant growth and development. Pesticide application causes oxidative stress to plants as a result of generation of reactive oxygen species and ultimately leads to retarded growth and photosynthetic efficiency of plants. Then try to ameliorate pesticide toxicity by activation of their internal antioxidative defense system, which includes antioxidative enzymes and non-enzymatic antioxidants. Pesticides' effects on animals. Most pesticides are toxic to insects, birds, mammals, amphibians, or fish, in short, wildlife species. The animal poisoning depends on pesticides' level of toxicity and other properties. The quantity being applied, frequency, timing, and its method of spraying. Insecticides, rodenticides, fungicides, and the more toxic, which is the herbicides, threatened exposed wildlife. Insecticides, rodenticides, fungicides, and the more toxic herbicides threaten exposed wildlife. Over the past 40 years, the use of highly toxic carbamate and organophosphate has strongly increased. In the south, organochlorines such as indosulfan, highly persistent in the environment, are still used on a large scale. With habitat change, pesticide poisoning can cause major population decline, which may threaten rare species. Pesticides affect wildlife directly and indirectly via food sources and habitats. Second is wildlife poisoning by highly toxic insecticides, rodenticides, fungicides, and toxic herbicides can cause major population decline. Third, pesticide accumulation in the food chain, particularly those which cause endocrine disruption, pose a long-term risk to mammals, birds, amphibians, and fish. Fourth is broad-spectrum insecticides and herbicides reduce food sources for birds and mammals. This can produce a substantial decline in rare species populations. Fifth is by changing vegetation structure, herbicide can render habitats unsuitable for certain species. This threatens insects, farmland birds, and mammals. For example, birds, when they are affected by pesticide, it can cause impede singing ability and at the same time making them difficult to attract mates and reproduce, and could affect birds' ability to care for offspring and leading those young ones to die. Deformations have been found after the exposure to hormone-mimicking pesticides that are classified as endocrine disruptors. And the impacts of these chemicals includes hermaphroditic deformities in frogs, the pseudohermaphrodite polar bears that has penis like stumps, panthers that have atrophied testicles, and the intersex fish in the rivers.
No matter where you live or how careful you are, it is likely that you've been exposed to pesticides. The gorgeous veggies and colorful fruits you see in the markets are grown with the use of pesticides. Whether you like it or not, pesticides are everywhere, and some level of exposure is inevitable. Yet, not many people are aware of what pesticides are, and how they affect human health. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, a pesticide is any substance that is used to destroy, repel, control or prevent plants and animals which are considered to be pests. Pesticides are specifically designed to be toxic or poisonous to pests, hence can also be toxic to humans as well. Since pesticides are intended to be toxic, they are biologically active agents, created to elicit a physiological reaction. This means that although they are effective in pest control, they can potentially endanger humans, household pets, and the environment as well. In fact, pesticide poisoning and related fatalities are a fairly common occurrence, with over 5 million cases occurring each year across the world. Experts broadly classify the effects of pesticides as topical or systemic. Topical reactions are usually limited to areas of the body that have come in direct contact with a pesticide. Inflammation of the skin, such as a rash or blisters, is usually the most common topical symptom. Other topical reactions may include sneezing, wheezing, and coughing, which are usually triggered by petroleum distillates that many pesticides contain. Systemic effects of pesticide poisoning are rather different from topical reactions. They are also more difficult to diagnose because you have already absorbed the pesticide, and symptoms can show long after initial exposure. Signs to watch out for include headache, fatigue, nausea, intestinal problems, and difficulty in breathing. Severe pesticide poisoning can cause seizures, change in heart rate, and sometimes even coma and death. Short-term pesticide poisoning or acute toxicity from pesticides is usually the result of a single and brief exposure to a pesticide. This kind of poisoning can happen due to exposure via the skin, inhalation, through the eyes, or orally. So, to stay safe from these side effects of being exposed to pesticides, better avoid using such chemical in your homes. And also prefer using fruits and vegetables which are grown organically.